All right. Hey, how's everyone doing?
Oh my goodness.
Hi,
Hello,
Mike.
Bishop. You are hot and
How
huge. I look
am I?
tiny and you are just humongous and out the door. I mean, you're just on it already. Good job.
Well, you something happened to your mic, but not to your mic, to your camera, but it's totally fine. It got slid back a little bit, but people aren't worried about that.
No, no.
Yeah, what we're here to do today, Mikey. Thank you so much for joining us. It is the Credence of Bishop show. Thank you so much. We have on legendary comedian, actor, producer Tim Stack.
Writer. I mean, come on. The guy is multi-talented and something neither one of us are.
Right.
We're
Oh,
definitely not multi-talented.
all day today. I was looking forward to this interview so much. Whenever you told me that you're working on Tim Stack to be on the
Right.
show, uh, and classic Tim Stack response, like, "Oh no, you don't want me, you don't want me."
That's
And
right.
I was like, "Oh, that now we want him to be on the show even more." So
Yeah. And the thing was, he said, it's like, I've done so many interviews. Why would I do this one? And I'm like, I promise you, it won't be the same old questions. It won't be the same old thing. We're not going to ask you to tell me about your family or anything like that. We've got some stuff we want to do with him. We got a limited amount of time, and we want to find out as much as we can that maybe isn't out there and well known already. There's so much. If you go on the internet and look around, there's so much misinformation, but there's also a treasure trove of things that people may not be aware of that we could go into. I mean, he is by far one of the people that, as a young man, I learned who he was over decades, if that
right.
makes sense.
No, I don't.
So it's definitely an honor to have him on. It's a big deal to me because I'm a huge, huge fan of Son of the Beach. I have all the DVDs, both seasons. Watch out. So, it's my kind of humor. He has the sense of humor that I definitely enjoy.
Well, I think we actually have him in the backstage area. Tim, if you want to give us a thumbs up or something and let us know that you're ready.
Slap the top of your head, anything, whatever it takes. Is he ready?
I think so. I think so.
Oh my!
Tim Stack, everybody.
Tim Stack, welcome to the show, brother.
Hi, fellas.
How's it going?
Who are you guys?
Yeah, that's
nobody. So yeah.
Well, when we start undressing, you'll know exactly who we are. Look at you. You're outside. You look healthy. It looks like you got a little bit of sun. I mean,
a little bit.
You're living the good
I'm
life.
Outside. It's smoky in California, everywhere, but yeah, it's good to be outside. I haven't worn long pants in 6 months, so COVID.
Well, yeah, sometimes you got to show them legs off. You got to get out there and
I used to do that for a living.
You get out there and show them what you got, and that way, you don't. The mystique is still there. You got that still that Tim Stack mystique that's going on. I mean, you were to me a leading man. I don't know if you considered yourself a leading man, but I did because
never.
Yeah, and I was telling Bishop before you came on,
Really?
I got to know you over decades because I was growing up in the 80s, and I would see this guy show up on Alf, or he would show up on something else. He might have been a bartender here, a security guard there. He might have been an asshole over on Night Court. Anything.
A lot of those.
I spent a lot of time in front of the television as a kid. So I memorized who different characters were, and I enjoyed seeing them in other things. So as time went on, I got older. I was like, that guy, I know him from something else. And one night when I was alone after high school, pondering what I was going to do, I turned on the television, and there was Night Stand. And I started watching it. I said, this guy is a genius. I mean, he has the sense of humor that I would be drawn to. He's definitely, his character work is extraordinary. He's being a real asshole to all these people and doing it with a smile. And that is the key, to be an asshole and do it with a smile while entertaining the world. And that is what you did, Tim.
Thank you. What can I say? I'll tell you one funny thing about Night Stand, which was I had sort of I did the show. I remember a show called Parker Lewis Can't Lose. I was a regular on that.
Loved it.
Great, fantastic show. And when that was over, something happened, and a guy was going to put me in a pilot. My good friend Barry Finero, who wrote the film Kingpin and a lot of other big movies, and he said, we got a pilot, and I said, sounds great. I was going to play, an a-hole cop. I said, that sounds good.
Yeah.
And Barry's a fantastic writer, and I knew it was going to be good. And then he literally calls me back like 5 minutes later and said, you're not going to believe this. The network said you're old news. I was like, I had a couple of kids, and I got a job writing on a show, and I might move a little here because
Go ahead.
I forgot that the gardener shows up here at this time. But
bring him on.
I quickly got a job on. Put him on. I quickly got a writing job on a show called On Our Own, which starred the Smollett family. If you remember the guy Jussie Smollett, who got in all kinds of trouble, his family. So, but I wasn't kind of done, and I live in Santa Barbara, and I ran into, he's getting close now.
Run, Tim, run.
There he is. He's driving by. So I...
Is it the gardener, or is it someone about to attack you?
Does he have a gun?
A chainsaw.
I think he's done. So
the smallest patch of grass in all of California.
I ran into Jonathan Winters, the legend.
Right.
And he's coming close, and he's got a blower in his hand. I'm going to move.
That's code for a knife.
I'm going to go out back. So I run it, and he's the legend, Jonathan Winters.
Right.
And the thing about Jonathan Winters was genius. And like, I'm not exaggerating, like he would say things and 90% of them were just crazy. And 8% of them were hysterically funny. And then I'm going to try to sit again. And then 2% of them was just a brilliant observation. And he said to me, if I had to do it all over again, I would do one character. And I thought to myself, that's from Jonathan Winters, who did 1,000 characters.
All right.
And I thought to myself, I want to do one character. What, like, if I had to hone in on one character, what would it be? And these friends of mine who I'd worked with had the talk show idea. And I said, I think I can do that. And I used to do Phil Donahue with the Groundlings, and somehow we did it. And I tried to do everything that I had done, everything you just described, I tried to do in Dick Dietrich. Like, I wanted to make him a lovable idiot. I wanted to make him a guy who was clinging to that 3 a.m. time slot. We always used to say, you put Dick Dietrich on right after the Juice Man, and it's gold. So I just sort of always kept that in mind. And really, when I look back on like my crazy career, I think Dick Dietrich was my best character. Don't get me wrong. I loved doing Son of the Beach, but Son of the Beach was such a spoof and so geared towards, big shock jokes, and now he's getting closer again. Big shock jokes, and obviously the babes, and Howard Stern. And so that was sort of the go-to there. But when I look back on my acting career, I think Dick Dietrich sort of sums up everything that I did best.
Right, because in a way, if you compare the two, Son of the Beach was one joke after the other, it fed to the next, to the next, to the next, to the next. Whereas on Nightstand, you built, and you had the characters were able to work to really build up Dick. I mean, that was the whole point. They were going to build in, and they were going to do their thing, and it just worked. It worked on so many levels. And it was at the time too where you had Jerry Springer and all those other things, and there were people that didn't know it wasn't a talk show. I remember talking to people who thought it was a talk show still.
You thought it was real. Yeah, right. Yeah. I remember when I first saw it, I was like, oh my gosh, I thought that it was just a real show, and that's how great it was. And then I was like, oh wait, this is all.
There you go, Tim.
How's
Looking
that?
good.
Sorry about that, guys.
Well, if you pay that gardener, he would quit chasing you for the money. I mean, quit being a tightwad, part with the cash, and the guy will go away. That's how it works.
That's a good point. I should do that.
But I mean,
I think he's moving on. Now we're good.
It's the perfect formula. That's basically what it was. It was the perfect formula. It was good for you, and it came across very well. And it only lasted like 90 some episodes.
That's
I
a
believe.
lot. I mean, when you think about it, though, that's a lot. It was just jam packed, and it was very low budget. It was crazy. We used to tape 5 episodes in a weekend, and we would split them up. We'd do 2.5 on Friday night and 2.5 on Saturday night. And that's what we did. And we did, I think, 50 some episodes the first year, and then 52, and then less the next year because we were on E channel as well the next year. And then it ran on E. People sort of connect the show with the E channel, sort of like in the golden years of E with Talk Soup and Howard.
Yeah.
But the show started out in syndication, and that's why we did 52 hours of programming, but it was for 52 episodes because it was 26 hours we were supplying the channels.
Do you feel that? I feel that Nightstand was, ahead of its time. Like, if I think this generation was introduced to it, as not like you redo the show, you keep those shows. You don't.
I agree. You're preaching to the choir. I don't know why that show, especially with like CBS owns the show, CBS All Access, and they've got this thing called Pluto TV. I don't know why it's not on there. I have no idea, but. What can I say? I don't know.
I mean, they got 24 hours of Dog the Bounty Hunter on there. So, I mean,
there you go. there's
definitely a need for quality entertainment. And that's one of them. I mean, it's definitely.
I just saw that, sorry to interrupt. I just saw that Reno 911 is now playing on CBS All Access. So maybe they're inching closer to putting Nightstand on because they own the show. So why not? The way they own Reno 911.
Now with all that going on, you know, Nightstand comes to an end. You decide what at that point you're just going to move on to writing more because you did some movies.
I went back to writing. I got the guy who had hired me on the show, the Smollett's guy, a really good guy named Dave Duclon. He was also running Family Matters at the time, with Urkel.
Mm-hmm.
So I went back to work on that show for the last season of Family Matters, and it was really fun. There were great people. In a writing room, it's less about the show and more about, unless it's your show, it's less about the show and more about the people you're working with, because you're in a room with them for 12, 14 hours a day, sometimes on weekends, and so it was a great room. And I went there, and then that ended, and I went to work for my friend Barry Finero, who I mentioned earlier. He had a show that was crazy called The Secret Life of Desmond Pfeiffer that got into all kinds of trouble. That show got canceled.
Well, what was the trouble?
It was racial trouble. It was It was perceived as being racist, and it really wasn't. But the problem was the perception was there, and that's all it took. And that show got canceled. But while we were doing that show, in a year and a half, I had met Howard and started developing a movie with him that he. And I said, well, I got this show that I did with these Nightstand guys, Son of the Beach. And he laughed, and I told him he said, let me do it. Let me see it. So I said, come out next time you're in LA, we'll do the pitch for you. So we did the pitch next time, and then he came out again, and then we sold the show. That's why it took so long. So that's what I did in the meantime. We sold Son of the Beach and then went to work on that right away in 2000. Or maybe we sold it in 99, and then it went on in 2000 through 2002.
I remember always hearing Howard he always had these ideas for movies. He'd bought the rights to Porky's or something like that. He wanted to
He
do
bought
Howard
the rights
Stern.
to Rock and Roll High School. In fact, I was the
Yeah.
first writer in on that movie.
And it never
I
got
wrote
made.
the first draft of it. It never got made. I don't know. I don't think they ever found a draft that Howard liked and the people that were financing it. I don't know. It's probably still kicking around. I think the guy, not Bill or Ted, who's the guy, one of them, I can't remember who Keanu Reeves plays. It's the other guy, Alex, whatever his name is,
Right.
was brought in to write it at one point. He was going to direct it. It's just one of those things in Hollywood, things get kicked around and then you never know. They show up again in this insane world.
Now, when you wrote Son of the Beach, were you always thinking when you're writing, I'm going to be Notch Johnson? So I'm going to fashion this to my strengths.
No, because I had come up with that idea during Nightstand, and I actually wrote a treatment, and I always saw, again, this goes back to your leading man thing. I always saw somebody like more handsome. And so I originally had, the actor Chris McDonald?
Yeah.
I sort of had him in my mind because it was like, I need somebody handsome who's an idiot, who can play an idiot and still be likable. And then what happened was I got together with Jim Stein and Dave Morgeson, who I'm working with right now, as a matter of fact, doing this animated pilot for Fox that hopefully goes. So Jim and Dave, we got together and we watched an episode of not Naked Gun, but the precursor to that, Police
Files.
Yep.
So we watched that and we're laughing. It's so funny, blah, blah, blah. And we were like, what's an idea that I could play somebody like that? And I said, could I do Son of the Beach? And suddenly they were like, oh my God, it's perfect. And I went, really? Because it's different with me in it. And they said, no, that's perfect. And it became Get Smart is what it became.
Yeah.
It became idiot Notch Johnson, who thinks he's got this incredible body and thinks he's incredibly handsome. Not even thinks, knows. And that's what became the show.
I mean, it worked. It really did.
Whenever you wrote the pilot, being that, you said that Son of the Beach was about the joke and the babes and stuff. Is that what you had in mind with the pilot?
100%.
Okay.
100%. Yeah, absolutely. We just wanted me surrounded by hot girls. And it was Baywatch. I mean, we were spoofing Baywatch. And that was the pitch. The pitch was, you've all seen the show Baywatch. Now take David Hasselhoff out and put me in. Mm-hmm. And it always got a laugh in the pitch, and that's what got bought.
And the thing that, I was a huge fan. I watched it every week. I couldn't wait for the second season to come, and it started and everything. And then, like a parent that's abandoned me on a doorstep, all of a sudden it's gone. And the next thing I know, that motherfucking shield is on. And I hate Chickless because he was the reason I felt like that you guys were pulled off the air. It really pissed me off.
Indirectly, I think, what happened was, I don't, in today's market, we'd be on the air. They would have never canceled us. But at the time, FX was so small and they had very little money. And I think Peter Liguri always wanted to do, I'm putting this in quotes, quality stuff. And this guy, Kevin Riley, came in and they just, they were looking for a change. I think, they didn't have the money to do all of what they wanted to do. Otherwise, they would have kept us on the air because it had an audience. In today's world, definitely. Our audience would be, we used to get 1.5 cable ratings, which, is huge. That's just mind-boggling huge today. But then it wasn't so much. And anyway.
Do you think Son of the Beach could survive, though, in this environment right now?
No.
How everything's being canceled? It would never make it.
Not even canceled. It would never get. It was too. I mean, we did sex jokes, we did race jokes, we did. As Mel Brooks says, Blazing Saddles would never get made today.
No.
Oh, yeah.
So that's sort of what. It just wouldn't play, and I would be surprised if he even ran the reruns. I don't know, maybe not. But we really pushed the envelope, and part of that was the Howard Stern brand. To just go for it. We used to be amazed at what we could get away with, and the marching orders from FX was, go for it, go.
How much crazy input did Howard have? I mean, he was always talking about how he was watching the dailies and things like that all the time.
It was unbelievable. I don't know how that guy's mind is. It's nothing like anybody's mind. He would literally sometimes call me. It would be so much easier to do that show today with him, because I could literally just, like we're doing now, I could show him, hey, Howard, we're going to film this scene. What do you think? He would call me. Like, I never watched the dailies. I just had no time. He would call and say, hey, Tim, I just watched the dailies. I'm thinking maybe, and I would say, okay, we'll pick up that shot, whatever it is. We're near there right now. We'll pick it up.
Right.
I have no idea how he did that. In addition to his own show,
I mean, but he's a busy guy, I mean, he's got a huge staff now. I mean, he's got a massive staff that's working for him. And somebody that it seems like you're real close with is Shuli. You and Shuli are pretty
I'm
tight.
doing something with him now. I'm writing something with him now. I can't talk about it, but it's we'll see what happens. And we're literally just finishing the script, so we'll see.
I heard there was something you and him were working on. Y'all were writing, because he was telling Howard on the show months and months ago that you guys were going to be working on something, and he wanted to pitch it to him. And so I was like, okay, so they're working on something. But I'm glad to hear it. I mean, Shuli is extremely talented. He doesn't get enough credit on that show.
He really his voices are and this is an animated thing, so I can't talk about it, but he's really, really talented and super funny. He sent me this other script that he wrote on his own about an experience in his life, and it was just, for somebody who had never written before, it was really good. And it was, oftentimes scripts are really funny, like jokes are really funny, but you still have to learn how to write. You have to learn how to tell the story, as I did, 20 years ago, or whatever it was, 30 years ago. So we'll see what happens. He's great. What can I say? We'll see what happens.
Well, see, that's how you're talking about coming up with a premise and a plot is one thing, but to write the dialogue and all that kind of stuff, that's where me and Bishop have always kicked around ideas and stuff. We had an idea for an animated show, which we were going to call it Comic Strip. And it would be set in a strip club, but it's it's animated. And Bishop used to work as a manager and DJ of a strip club for like how many years, Bishop? 5 years, 6 years, something like
8 years. I was there for 8 years. Oh my God, it was
Bishop
awful.
has a treasure trove of stories ranging from a stripper calling him and saying, "Hey, I can't come out of the bathroom because a ghost has trapped me in the bathroom." To yelling at these skinny girls and telling them to lose weight while Bishop is 250 pounds. So, I mean,
that was not my saying. That was the marching orders from the boss. But we have
That's funny. That's a great idea. It sounds fun. And in today's world, there are channels that might run that. There are certainly streaming apps that might do something like that. Go for it, guys.
But that's the thing is, having the idea compared to building it out in the skeleton,
writing,
stuff,
we're the idea guys.
For whatever it's worth, and I, at times, I have taught writing at UCLA. It's all about the characters. It's all about who the characters are. And even with Notch Johnson, as stupid as it was, we sort of came up with a Bible of Notch Johnson. He fought in all these wars, and there wasn't a war he didn't fight in, and we kept adding to it, but it was all about the characters.
So basically, you put this character in these situations. You already knew, like you said, you had the Bible. So
in the case of satire, it's a little easier because you're given a format already. We were given Baywatch, so it was much easier. Other shows, like the thing with Shuli, it's like, okay, we have an idea for a character. Now we had to build a show, and you have to build other characters, and what it's really about is character-driven conflict. And
Right.
that's where, you get into developing the other characters and who they are. And then the storylines, you hopefully want them to come out of character. A character does something that creates conflict, and that drives your story.
Yeah, I mean the whole, that's why I said our whole issue is writing. I mean, we haven't sat down and tried a lot, but I mean, we've hashed out this idea a million times. We've talked about different things we could put into it, and characters. I mean, the characters are already all built in, but it's that point where we've got to get over that hump and get our hands on someone who does know things about writing. Because I write it, it's going to sound like a dyslexic children had come in and started just hitting the keyboard. So that's not
for whatever it's worth. There's the book I always recommend. Maybe it's because it's the first screenwriting book I ever wrote. There's a book called Screenwriting by Sid Field, SYD Fields or Field. Anyway, he writes about, he describes movie writing, but in a sense, half-hour television is just a half-hour version of a movie. So for whatever it's worth, guys, it's $12 on Amazon or something, and I think it's a great book.
What's your thoughts on like them remaking all these classic comedies? Like I think earlier this week, Planes, Trains, and Automobiles is getting remade with Will Smith and oh my gosh,
it's a Kevin Hart, I think.
Kevin Hart, yes. Yeah. Oh my God, I couldn't think of Kevin Hart. Like, what's your thoughts on, a few years ago they redid the Ghostbusters and stuff. Like, do you think that they should just keep these things that are great automatically, or just let's rehash everything, let's try to do everything over again?
I don't know. I think it's a lot of it has to, again, that word brand is so big now. It's like everything has a brand. I think that's why they do it, because there's a Ghostbusters brand. People know the name Ghostbusters. It helps in marketing, I think. I don't know. God bless them. If it's funny, let's go see the movie.
Yeah, but here's the thing. Is it to me that it's laziness and lack of creativity that has drawn us to this, where we're remaking everything? And it's not like we're remaking bad films. We're remaking films that were successful already, but trying to rework it so you can get that magic. And as you're talking about brands, aren't you hurting a brand when you turn it into crap? I mean, you're taking
I think you are, but you probably are. But the dollars, drive everything. And if the marketing department says Ghostbusters, and people are desperate for work, and they'll think they can maybe come up with a new take, and Will Smith and Kevin Hart in Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, that could work. I mean, it's such a classic movie. If it's funny, those guys are funny. They're good. Maybe it'll be good.
Well,
that's a big macro question. I don't know.
If that happens, then me and Bishop are going to remake Cannonball Run. Dom DeLuise and Burt Reynolds. I mean,
Dom was a very good friend of mine. He was a very, very good friend.
One of my
great
favorite
guy,
movies.
And he was just a great guy. Dom DeLuise, who I met in my first big movie. I didn't have a big part, but I had was The Best Little Whorehouse in Texas.
Oh,
with
what a
Burt Reynolds. And
I was so mad when I rented that as a kid. I was expecting a whole other film, but when it come on, I was like, "Where's all the whores doing their whore things?" This is
they were there, but you just didn't see them working.
Yes,
right. Song and dance. They're doing song and dance.
They were singing instead. What a great experience that was, though, and met a bunch of people who still friendly with, and a guy I used to write with, Larry Williams. We met. He was an actor. He was a writer who had an acting job, and I was an actor who wanted to pick up some writing work, and we met there, and wrote a bunch of stuff together, did a couple of plays together, and it was just a great experience. But the Dom DeLuise, I had never become friendly with a movie star, and he really took a liking to me. Came to the Groundlings, and I got to know his family, and went to the weddings, and just an amazing person. That I don't know. It was mind blowing to me that Dom DeLuise, who I had seen, all through the 60s and 70s,
Mm-hmm.
was suddenly like, thinks I'm funny. That was a big thing for me. Like, and I can remember the moment we were all riding back from this location, and I was doing some bit or something, and he turned around and looked at me in the bus, and he looked at me and he said, "You're funny," and it was just like, oh my God, Dom DeLuise thinks I'm funny. That is really cool. That's a moment that I remember.
Did you go and like tell people, like, call home and say, "Hey, you'll never believe what Dom DeLuise said to me today"?
I'm sure when I got on the phone with my parents, next time I talked to them, back then phone calls were expensive. So, yeah, I mean, for Dom DeLuise, and then, my mom had a radio show when I was a kid. It was a local Pennsylvania radio show. And then one time she came out and we went to see Dom in Vegas, and she got to interview him for her show. And it was a big deal. He just couldn't, that guy, man, was just the nicest.
He seemed like the kind of guy that he was always on too. Like there was
always
no
on,
off
but
switch.
also, like Jonathan Winters though too, like, was very thoughtful. And you could have a completely, serious, normal conversation. But if you went out to a restaurant or something with him, he just lit the room on fire. He'd go table to table and people just, but that was him. That was, he just loved performing, whether it was in a restaurant or on the big screen. There was a story told at his funeral. It was so funny. Mel Brooks and Carl Reiner, who I don't know at all, but they were not performing. They were giving speeches at the memorial.
Man, they had some bits they were just throwing down at the funeral.
It was so funny. They were so funny. But Mel Brooks told a story of when he was doing Blazing Saddles, and the studio, they were looking at the budget, and they said, "Why do you have 2 days for this scene?" Which was the big, or why do you have 4 days for this scene, or whatever it was, which was the big dance number in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, well, that's because Dom DeLuise is going to be there those days. He said, well, why do you need the extra days? And he said, because Dom DeLuise is going to be there those days. And if you've worked with Dom DeLuise, you're going to need more time because he's off doing crazy stuff. But they film the stuff, and inevitably it shows up in movies, just bits that Dom did on camera. So,
yeah, I always used to love the bloopers and outtakes at the end of like Cannonball Run and stuff like that. And it was always just, I mean, he seemed like a genuine guy. He seemed like he really was funny, and it wasn't just a put on. And that's great that you were able to, not say validation, but that gave you that spark to, wow, I can keep doing this. I am funny. I don't.
It was unbelievable. And then I got to work. There was a show on called Amazing Stories.
Yeah.
That Steven Spielberg produced. I never met him, but Burt Reynolds directed that episode. And because I was friendly with Dom, Burt didn't take I mean, he's he's like an incredible movie star. And, I got to talk to him and hang out with him a little bit. And he directed me, and he was a really great director. There's a guy that, not that my opinion means anything, but Burt Reynolds, had he done more of what Clint Eastwood did, which was go more towards directing, like, we know you're a movie star. Now show us you as a director. He was a fantastic director. And I think would have had a whole other career, but, he needed to be a movie star, so he stayed with it.
Yeah, I mean, now a question completely off the subject. Burt Reynolds, a guy well known for wearing a toupee for a lot of years. And I mean, and you never wore like the toupee. You didn't have the Burt Reynolds, let's say. You didn't have that going on. You kept it more natural looking.
Well, the one I wore on Nightstand was just sort of let me remember now. No, I had hair in the front, and we put one on the back. By the time
like
Son of the Beach came around,
patching a tire.
Yeah, it was like a patch. And then by the time Son of the Beach came around, I wanted to do something different. I wanted to give it that sort of beach look. So we had another one built that was sort of a two-parter. So there was a lace piece on the front, then there was my hair, and then a patch, and everything went back for that sort of slicked back ocean look, like I had just come out of the ocean. That was what
Wind
I was
blown.
thinking.
Yeah, you were right
wind
there.
blown, sun-soaked hair. Just
full
beautiful.
Full of suntan lotion and love.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, I know we don't have much more time with you, but before we let you go, we did some digging online, and we found several questionable photos, but I would like for you to look at them and tell us what point of your career, what was going on this time, and what this photo means to you. Bishop, you got some of those photos?
Oh, here we go.
Okay, this is Notch Johnson or you possibly storming the beaches of Normandy. Do you remember that day?
I don't remember that day. I think I would have been shot if I was actually there.
You look like you're the first man off the boat.
They would have had a good target. I don't remember. Was that from Son of the Beach? I don't remember that. Or somebody did that photo.
I don't know. I mean, it's definitely one of those ones where you're like,
I think maybe you guys did that photo.
You never know. You never know. Bishop, what's next?
All right, here we go.
Leading man, good looks. I mean,
there
you had
go.
it all.
Actually, that photo was taken at the Groundlings reunion, and I think John Lovitz is next to me. Sexiest man alive. Yeah, John and I we were in the Groundlings together. Also a good friend, and we remained really good friends. We were neighbors together in an apartment complex. And I remember the day he got his first acting job, which was on a TV series they did a series of The Paper Chase. Okay. I think it was on Showtime. And he got an acting, he was so excited. He ran over to we had a balcony, and he ran over like, Tim, I got the, and I always knew he was going to work. He was so funny. He was so talented. I just always knew he was going to work. And he ran over, I got a job, and he threw up.
Oh,
he was so
over the balcony.
Over the balcony. He was just so excited and overcome. And I know the feeling. Like, I remember literally when my agent called and told me I got my first job, which was it was a TV movie called Thornwell. And I was sort of the comedy relief in it. And I remember I literally started to cry because it was, like, oh my God, I'm going to be on television. Like, I actually got, and I auditioned for it, and I got an acting job. Oh my God, Tim, this is, a lot of people, like, there were a lot of girls on Some of the Beach who, they just, they were the hot girl in high school, and they came out and, they got to be on television. They could go back to their reunion and say, I was on a show. I went out to Hollywood. I got on a show. And I didn't know what was going to happen after that first job. But that feeling of your first job as an actor, it's an incredible feeling.
All right, it was all worth it, like you were vindicated. Yeah, you were on the right path.
The thing about me is on paper I should have retired a long time ago, and I could, but I really like it. That's why I've sort of moved now in the animation world, because I like the jokes. I like writing, and then I just wrote something else that is different for me. It's kind of a dramedy based on a woman who on a real story, and somebody I met when I first moved to LA. And I don't want to go into that either, but it's a dramedy. So that's a new challenge for me. It was really fun to write because it was different. So I still enjoy it. This thing I'm doing with Shuli, I literally just emailed him the latest draft that we'll talk about tomorrow. And it's fun. I like it. I like the communication. I like the writer's room. We're not in a room right now because of COVID, but if the thing with Fox gets picked up, hopefully we'll be able to get back into a room. Otherwise, we'll have to do it via Zoom, which is not the same, but we'll get it done.
Yeah.
That'll be a good problem to have.
Oh, now look, here's a picture of you hosting Miss Teen USA, and you brought along your friend Ted Bundy. Do you remember this
Ted's
photo?
A good guy. Ted, I miss him dearly.
Talking about a good head of hair. Look at that head of hair. I mean, he had some great hair. If I had
Ted Bundy's hair, I would be really, really successful. That picture there's a funny story behind that picture. That picture is on an episode of My Name is Earl, where I ended up doing like 20 episodes of that show. That show was really, really, really fun to work on and be around. And Greg Garcia, who's one of my best friends, created the show. I learned so much from him writing because he's just such a great writer and showrunner. But the funny story behind that was we're doing the show. We were doing this episode where somehow the Joy character had been in a little girl's beauty pageant, one of those things you see on TV. And Greg came to me and he said, "Hey, Tim, you know what? I really want to get like a real, like a B-list celebrity to play the host of the beauty pageant." I said, "Well, let me think if I know anybody." And he said, "Well, no, I want you."
You know who he was talking about. He said B-list. I mean,
yeah.
Celeb B-list.
So I laughed and I said, "Okay, let me play me. If it's me and I'm a drunk and a pedophile." Yeah. And so that's what we did with that first episode. And then the character sort of took off and became almost a regular on the show as TV's Tim Stack. That's where I came up with TV's Tim Stack. And I started wearing my uniform from Son of the Beach as if, and it's based on something, I'm dropping more names, that Lee Majors had told me. Lee Majors was in the last 3 episodes of Son of the Beach. Again, great guy, incredible stories. Just what a career that guy had. But one of the stories he told me was, I was a big fan of the show The Big Valley when I was a kid. And that was his first show. And he told me that the guy, you guys are too young to remember The Big Valley, but there was a character on there, Nick Barkley, who was like the badass Barkley. And he always wore black gloves and he wore black, everything was black. And he was the tough guy, first guy to get in a fight. But he told me that the actor, I think his name was Peter Breck, used to wear his Big Valley costume like on Saturdays. Like he'd go out to the bank and the grocery store, drive up and down Ventura Boulevard in a convertible, and he would wear his outfit. Like he couldn't get enough attention. He had to wear his outfit on Saturdays. Like, oh my God, it's Nick Barkley at the bank, whatever. And I always thought that was so crazy. And then I said to Greg, what if I wear my Son of the Beach outfit as TV? He said, that's great, go with it. And that's sort of how that happened.
Yeah, I got a message on Twitter from someone who you're friends with. I think her name is Kat. And she was like, hey, ask him if he's wearing his Notch Johnson shorts right now during the interview. So I told her, I said, I'll ask him, but I'm pretty sure he's probably
I'm wearing shorts, but not the Notch Johnson shorts. Those things I still have somewhere. I have all the. I have.
Well, look at you.
Somewhere.
I mean, you were a party animal back in the day. Here you are, Studio 54 with looks like Rod Stewart and maybe Cher and some other people. I have no idea who they are, but you were living the good life.
You know who is to the left of Cher? To Cher's left.
Mm-hmm.
That is, she was married to Keith Richards for a while. Patty Hansen.
Oh,
I believe that's Patty Hansen, and I'll get to my outfit in a second. Patty Hansen, when I lived in New York right out of college, so this was 70, I graduated in 78, I got a job tending bar at the Lone Star Cafe, and she came in there once by herself, and it's like, oh my gosh, Patty Hansen, she was a big supermodel at the time, and she did like 4 shots, I remember, 4 shots of Cuervo Gold, and left. And wow. I thought that's a weird, like, hit me again, Patty Hansen. And so that I did get to meet Patty Hansen. The outfit I'm wearing is from Back to School, where I'm the guy, the character's the trendy guy with Rodney Dangerfield at the party. And a lot of people remember that scene because I said, it's a big party scene and Rodney's walking by and I said, Mr. whatever his name was, we're in front of a painting, which by an artist named Klimt. And I said, hey, I'm just enjoying your wife's Klimt. And he said, oh yeah, she's she's does she show you? She shows it to everybody. And I said,
Showing
well,
everybody tonight. Yeah.
yeah, she and I said, well, she's very proud of it. And he said something, Rodney, like, yeah, I'm proud of mine too, but I don't go waving around in public. And then that was the scene from Back to School. But that's the outfit I wore in that movie.
Did
Now,
you get to spend any time with Rodney at all?
That night, it was just one night, and it was his birthday. And I remember I got to spend more time with Rodney. He came on Nightstand later on to promote the movie Meet Wally Sparks. And somehow we got Rodney. There's an episode of Nightstand where Rodney's on the show, and we show a clip from Meet Wally Sparks. So I got to spend more time with him there. He was a very nice man, and he was crazy. You know,
Did he walk around in a robe with his penis hanging out?
No,
like I've heard several stories of.
I know people who've had those meetings with him, and also the things like, "Hey, you mind if I smoke?" And he would light up a joint. No, that night I didn't spend more time with it, but it was his birthday. I remember this from that. It was his birthday, and somebody gave him, at the time, Stolichnaya had just arrived, and it was like, oh my God, somebody's got Stolichnaya. Now it's like that's urine vodka. Yeah, but at the time it was a big deal. And somebody gave him a bottle of Stoli, and it was gone by morning. We shot all night, and I remember seeing an empty bottle of Stoli, and Rodney took care of it.
That's probably one of our biggest regrets. We had Rodney booked for our show when we were on terrestrial radio, and he passed away like a week before we were supposed to have him on the show. And here you.
With OJ, my buddy OJ.
Yeah, you defending OJ. What's going on with that?
You guys are getting me for more time, which is fine. I actually have an OJ story. If you'd like to hear it.
Oh yes,
I'd love to hear an OJ story.
So when I live in Santa Barbara now, we lived in Los Angeles. My daughter, Murphy, who I think is going to listen to this, went to this school. And it was kind of a little too fancy for us. But we went there, and there were a bunch of celebrities who had kids there. And the Simpsons sent their kids to this school. They were little kids at the time, this little nursery school. And at the time, I had a pickup truck. I don't know why. And they said to me, Tim, would you come to would you pick up all the sodas for the school fair and drop them off? Because the school fair was going to be at the Simpsons house. So I said, yeah, sure. They said, you got to be there Sunday morning, like at 8:30 to pick up sodas or 8 o'clock, and then go to the Simpsons and just ring the doorbell, and the housekeeper will come out and put the sodas in the pool house, and then we'll set them up later. I said, okay, that's great. Or maybe it was like a Saturday and the school fair's the next day, whatever. I don't know. So I go and pick up the sodas, and I get to the Simpsons house, and the gate is open. And I ring the doorbell, and it was this, you saw it on TV. It was like this incredible mansion and grounds. And I get there, and I ring the doorbell, nobody's coming out. I'm yelling like, hello, anybody home, anybody home? So I just said, well, there's the pool house around the corner. I'll just walk the sodas down. So I swear to God, this is a true story. And I'm taking like 3 cases of soda, and I'm walking down, I put them in the pool house, and I walk back in. And like on my 3rd trip, I go down to the pool house, and I'm just stepping out of the pool house. And the pool house is probably 25 yards away, maybe 40 yards away from the gate. And walking back, and suddenly the white Ferrari pulls in, the famous white Ferrari pulls in. And OJ, now it's like 9 in the morning. And OJ gets out of the car. And with that, Nicole comes running out of the house. And I didn't know these people at all. I met them at the school fair later on the next day. And Nicole comes running out of the house, and she's really angry with him. And she's yelling like, you motherfucker, you're out. Can I say that? Sorry.
Yeah, go for it.
You're out. You're cheating. And it's like, and he could not have been cooler. Like, no, I'm playing golf. And there's more yelling as they walk into the house. And at that moment, though, I'm thinking, because he had already been arrested for battery at this point.
All right.
And I'm thinking, oh my God, what's gonna happen here? If he raises a hand to her, I'm gonna say something. And you can't believe how big he was. I've never told the story, I don't think, publicly. Maybe I shouldn't, but anyway,
No, you're
too
fine.
late
Go
now.
ahead.
So, but I'm thinking he's going to kick the crap out of me and thank God he didn't. It was very odd. It was not the OJ that night, who later on clearly murdered her. He was Mr. Like, I don't, clearly he had been out all night partying and again, it was a crazy, like, OJ. That's my OJ story. And then they walked in the house, and the next day they seemed fine.
Did no one acknowledge that you were there? No one acknowledged.
Here's what I did. I waited till the door was out. I ran to the gate. I went to my truck. I unloaded the rest of the sodas in the driveway and drove away as fast as I could. And then the next day, they seemed fine. Like they were the Simpsons, the perfect couple to host a school fair. But it was like,
it makes you wonder what it took to push him to where it went.
And I heard stories later on. Again, I don't have no proof of this. This is just me. I heard stories that when he partied, when I say partied, like
right,
maybe took things. I don't know, but I heard stories that he would get crazy sometimes out on the town if certain pharmaceuticals were in his system. Again, I have no proof of that. That's a rumor that I heard, and he just couldn't have been. He was not crazy OJ that morning in the driveway. He was.
Do you think maybe
the husband who was like, no, you're wrong. I was playing golf. He was wearing shorts, so maybe he was. Maybe he was playing golf. So anyway, he went in the house, and I quickly unloaded the sodas and drove away.
When the murders did happen, did you think to yourself, that could have been me? What if OJ had went kind of crazy at that point, and then you had said, hey man, don't put a hand on her. It could have been Nicole and Tim had been murdered. You could have been the Ron Goldman.
I think that's jumping into like a weird. I was just afraid at the time. Again, he had the arrest for battery, and I just thought you just can't believe how big he was, or is. His hands were like. Anyway, it was not crazy OJ, but obviously, when you hear those 911 tapes of OJ trying to bust in the house, clearly there were times where he was out of his mind. And I think the night she died, and the thing is, I didn't know them at all. I only know that she had a rumor at the school, or had a reputation at the school, of just being a really nice mom and a nice person. The people I did know who know her just said she was just a really, really nice person. It's just, it's an awful.
It's a tragedy. It's definitely a huge tragedy.
And that OJ documentary on ABC was one of the best things ever produced. Just, oh my God, when you think about that time in LA and the OJ trial, and crazy times.
Definitely crazy times. And Tim, we have kept you longer than we should have. I'm sure you've probably got dinner to go eat or something like that, or something to write. Maybe. I don't know what you got planned next. By the way, what is next for you? What are you about to go do when you get off here with us? Are you going to eat?
I'm going to have some dinner with my wife, and then I'm going to hopefully do a little work with Shuli tomorrow, and then back at it on this Fox thing next week. That hopefully we'll see what happens.
Give Mr. Shuli our best. We would love to have him on sometime. I know it's kind of hard to get people from that show on, but we would love to be able to talk to Shuli one day. Absolutely.
Yeah, he's such a nice guy. As are, I got to say, the people, Howard, he's a nice guy. And the people that work with him, they're all nice people. And you hear this stuff about, like this crazy stuff about Ellen. I don't know her at all, but I only know that the people who work for Howard, that's not the experience they have. So, he treats his people well and couldn't be more open. My time with him was,
We had Brent Hatley on about a month and a half ago after he had left Howard's show, and he had nothing but great things to say. And that seems to be the going thing. He's running a business, so he's got to be a businessman, but at the same time, it seems like he's treating everybody very well. So.
Absolutely. And I think they're paid well. And I've seen the tips that Howard leaves on checks. He's a good guy. He takes care of his people. So,
well, Tim, we're going to have you on again sometime. You're definitely somebody I could sit and talk to for hours. You're a treasure trove of information and know-how, getting into business,
Stories.
getting through life stories. You just told us about going to OJ's house and seeing him fight. I mean, that right there.
No, I didn't see him fight. That's the
argue.
I thought I was going to. Thank God
no
argument.
argument.
It was just like she was furious and he was.
It was
like,
one-sided.
Golf.
OJ had to run in and take a shower real quick, but we're gonna have you on again. If you would ever come back on, we'd be very honored.
Yeah. Stay in touch, guys.
We will
good luck
definitely
with your stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll keep in touch with you. We'll definitely as soon as you can talk about some of these projects, we'd love to have you on to talk about those.
Yes, that would be really great.
I would love that. Everyone, please thank Tim Stack. Find him on Twitter. Find him wherever you want. Go out and buy some of his older movies and, indulge and learn what I learned as a kid, that this guy, he's in everything. And that's what it is. Tim Stack, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you, guys. Really fun. Good luck.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Tim.
No problem. See you, Tim. Ladies and gentlemen, Tim Stack. Awesome interview. We kept him from almost an hour, and I'd promised him 30 to 45 minutes.
45 minutes.
But the guy is
well, he was going on his own. He was we weren't pulling teeth. Tim was just letting the stories out. How crazy was the OJ story? Because you made all these like little overlays, right? And we were like, if it's going well, we'll like say, hey, this part of your career or whatever.
Right.
Who would have thought that the OJ one, you would have an OJ story, and that he would know who this lady is from bartending.
He had a story for every pitcher, and that's amazing. That's what I had hoped for. There were some we didn't get to that were pretty crazy, but you know what?
I think it ended well.
I think he enjoyed himself. I felt like it was a high note. We needed to go out on a high note, and it definitely was. If you enjoyed this interview, please give us a subscribe over on YouTube or wherever you're finding us right now. These are all of our platforms. We go live with all of our stuff. We never censor or cut down anything. If we mess up, you see it. If the celebrity has a tantrum, you see it. All right here on our show. We never hold back.
And also keep in mind too, on all our interviews, if you have a question, which was funny, there wasn't a lot of questions, any really in the chat this week for this interview. But if you have a question, we'll ask the question for you. Put your question up on the thing here.
You're more than welcome to be part of the show, because this show, we do it for you. We do it because we love to do it. And we've got more interviews coming up next week. I'll be announcing those. I go ahead and tell you one of them. Monday, we'll be having Holly Randall, who is a photographer. Her mother was Susie Randall, a very well-known photographer. And she has a lot of stories. She works a lot with the adult industry and outside the adult industry. She isn't in movies, but she's like a porn star whisperer in a way. So she gets the best out of them. So look for us. We have interviews from since we've come back, all up there on our YouTube page. Please go subscribe, like, wherever you're at. And let us know if there's an interview you would like to see. Send us an email, and we'll definitely see if we can't get that person on for you. Bishop, we're at the 1 hour mark, and I want to thank you for coming on with us, and check us out again everywhere.
Any final words, Mikey?
I love you all. I'm ready to go and have some dinner.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone, for joining us. Like Mikey said, join us on all our social media platforms. Subscribe on the YouTube page. Like us on Facebook. Follow us on Twitter. And I don't know what you do on Twitch, but just do that too. All right. Thank you so much. And we'll see you Monday night. Actually, we'll see you tomorrow, sometime during the day for the lottery show. But we'll see you Monday night for the interview with Holly Randall. Thank you. God bless. And good night. Good night.